DShoemaker Interview. Back at it. Again, man, I got a very special guest. I was out making my way. I met this young gentleman out doing his big things in life. As well as, man, we had great conversations just on a lot of different journeys that we witnessed actually throughout our journeys of life. With no further introduction, Willie, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Willie Toombs. I own a company called the JR Toombs Consulting, and it's a small financial, personal, and business financial consulting service. Started that probably about 2008. I would say I'll take that back, 2020. But I've been in financial services for about, I would say, 20 years. But not only that, man, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, man, moved here to Texas after leaving the University of Memphis, studying African American studies and architecture. And when I got in African American studies, man, it just pulled me, bro. It was like something that I realized that was a passion of mine, trying to make sure that we understood our history, but also understanding with everything that I've been through, how we can affect our community and what type of things we can do to make our community better as Black people, man, as Black Americans and African Americans, as you say.
Okay, Willie, with that being said, man, before we get off into your backstory, man, what is African American studies? What is that?
So basically, it's a cultural studies that basically talks about the experience from what is now called Black American Studies, but from our experience is from a point of us coming here after slave trade and how we've developed our own culture, the history of our own culture. Because you have to understand, man, that our community, our demographic, we're one of the most unique demographics in the world, simply because what happens, man, is our story is not directly to a certain region, culture, or country. We've had to develop a lot of it. So we actually have a lot of culture. We've developed a lot of culture. So African American Studies is basically a sociological study of that particular culture, from our music to our clothing to everything we do to affect this country as a whole and the world as a whole. And you and I were kind of talking about that, but that's what African American Studies is, man.
They teach that in colleges here.
Absolutely. And then I got it at University of Memphis, but University of Texas at Arlington has a great interdisciplinary study program that talks about, it's under the cultural studies, but it specifically talks about the African American studies. There are quite a few African American, HBCUs that teach that, man. But I think it's something that we really need to understand about our culture, because we actually are the determiners of what's cool, what's acceptable, and what's not acceptable, good and bad, and I think you and I talked about a little bit of that. But we actually make any culture of any place in the world, and that comes from here is us in America after the slave trade and after those type of things. So yeah, they actually teach that in school, man.
Facts. I like that, man. Growing up, man, I never heard of classes and curriculums that teaches African Americans about their culture. So
exactly.
that's pretty dope, and I'm grateful for you saying that, man. It's giving people other avenues to go find themselves, and their lineage and where they're from. So,
absolutely.
With that being said, man, let's go ahead and hop straight off into it, man. You was born in Texas?
No, actually born in Little Rock, Arkansas, man. I'm originally from Arkansas, another transplant to the state of Texas, man. And I graduated, like I said, I'm 47, so I graduated from high school in 96. Ended up going to school and didn't go directly to school when I graduated. Ended up going to the University of Memphis in about 98, 99, spent about a year and a half there, and then came here in 2000 due to me getting really sick and having to, drop out of school. So originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, moved here to Texas, yes, in about 2002. So I've been here ever since, man.
How was your childhood in Little Rock, Arkansas, man?
It's ironic, man, because I think I being Gen X, man, we grew up at a time period where we were probably one of the last generations, man, that truly did stuff like go outside. We had to learn, how to communicate with each other because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have FaceTime and all those things were a dream to us. You know what I mean? So growing up in Little Rock, man, it was really, I grew up in a community of people. That old African adage that says, proverb that says, it takes a community. That's where it comes from, an African proverb, and it does take a community to raise a child. I was one of those people who, if you got in trouble, man, in the neighborhood, you didn't only get fussed at by your parents, you got fussed at about everybody else in the neighborhood when they find out you got in trouble. So I grew up learning how to relate to people, talk to people, those type of things. Little Rock was a great city up until, most people who are my age gonna remember, up until the big gangbanging scene took place. And everybody usually remembers, not to glorify, but remembers banging in Little Rock and all this other stuff that came out on HBO, and it was just this big cultural thing that hit. And that part, whether it's Little Rock, Chicago, New Orleans, that was another example of the denigration of our communities. You know what I mean? Although that aspect within our community initially started to protect our community, right? All gangs started off, even the Crips and Bloods in LA started off to protect our community, but that was a huge part of Little Rock. But I was blessed to, see the other side of it too. My parents are people of the civil rights movement. So they marched with King and, did all those type of things. So I got a chance to see both sides of those things, man. It was really interesting.
Man, you said a lot. You said a lot of different things I can kind of pick back off of because I would love to know at round about what year and what time was it that in Arkansas that you seen gang banging take off?
I would probably say, man, it hit when I was around middle school, as we call it, junior high. It was that's probably when it started picking up.
80s.
It was man. I would probably say 80s. I don't want to say around 88 because it was right after that big crack epidemic and drug dealing epidemic. It was around 88. I want to say 87, 88, 89, somewhere around there.
Most definitely.
When it moved, so don't quote me on that. But that's when that moved into Little Rock. And so a lot of people who got involved in that, I grew up with a real good family. So a lot of people got involved in that were friends, but I had a good family, grew up with my mom and my dad. They pushed education, even though my father didn't have his college degree, that, I was expected to go to college and all those type of things. But I grew up with a lot of people in our neighborhood who we grew up playing Little League football and all that other stuff. So, it was that was around the time period, man, and it was really an interesting dynamic and transition, brother. It really was, man. So.
Okay. I like that, man. And another thing I heard, man, you said that your mom and dad was marching with Martin Luther King.
Yeah, man. They grew up in the civil rights movement. My parents were older, so realistically, they grew up in that civil rights era. As a matter of fact, my dad was part. The biggest thing that I like to let people know that comes out of Little Rock is the high school I graduated from, Little Rock Central High. And those of you who are older and know a little bit about history, just look up the Little Rock Central High crisis. I graduated from that high school, but that was around 58, somewhere around there. But yeah, they were part of the movement, man, and they understood the dynamic. So I can directly go to my mom and talk about when they couldn't go to movie theaters, or if they did, they had to sit in the back or the balcony. Why they couldn't go to restaurants, why they had to stay to their side, even had fountains that they could only drink out of. Those things that we only hear about, Jim Crow, right? That we just hear about. My parents experienced it. So I was able to kind of tie that into, I know I've said a lot, but I tie that into my identity, you know what I mean? And graduated from a school like Little Rock Central High was an honor for me, because at the end of the day, that's part of, American history, not just Black history, to walk the steps of Minnie Jean Brown and Ernest Green and those type who, were one of the first that graduated from an all-white high school. So they had to fight for that, man. And so yeah, it was a lot to take in. My dad was part of a lawsuit that happened prior to them being admitted to Central, and it's still called Aaron versus the Board of Education in Little Rock, Arkansas. And my dad was part of it. I'm a junior, so he's listed. My aunts are listed, and that's what woke me up when I just said, "Whoa, you never know what your history says until you get to looking into it and how much your direct relatives has impacted the world, as we know."
Okay, man, I'm gonna get off subject just a little bit. Really,
Let's go.
You know, I just want to get your intake in certain backgrounds and certain opinions on this topic. You know, I got a tremendous amount of respect, you know, for Charleston Light. You know, a guy that actually attacked the gangs and attacked really most of all the negative things that go on in our community, including the mindset. To you, how much have gang banging affected the black community?
Well, our modern idea of gang banging, man, has been it's been a detriment to our community from day one, although I understand where it comes from.
So it's the modern day gang banging?
Yeah, and so I say that because you know, I love history, right? Realistically, man, and like I said, you guys can research and hit him with all the facts that you know, and the messages and the DMs, man, and comments, man, that a lot of this stuff started from us during that civil rights movement trying to protect our own people. It wasn't, I don't like that crew, I don't like this crew. It was literally started almost like how the Black Panthers started. It's another idea to say we need to take care of our own community, right?
Exactly.
But the modern idea of gangbanging, when the drugs were introduced, right? That's when it became quote unquote gangbanging, in my opinion. When the drugs were introduced into the country, and I know a lot of people have watched Snowfall. That was some real stuff, right? When they're dropping, you know, drugs into our community, and then you see these young brothers who are finding ways to make money, who've never had anything. That's the what I consider the modern idea of gangbanging and the modern idea of black violence against each other. Right?
Okay, I love that. I love that, man. My thing is, how did it get so far off track for the people and came more about self?
It's the money.
The money.
You know, at the end of the day, I was hanging around some mentors, and at the end of the day, man, they said, you know, money can change circumstances, right? And I'm very compassionate, understanding if you've never grown up with it, right? When you get it sometimes, and you know, and you may not have had the education to go to school to get a 4-year degree and do all these things, or the need was immediate, right? Hey, I gotta I gotta take care of my people now, right? I gotta figure out how to go hustle. You know, it wasn't, as we talked about, it wasn't anything like Uber, GoPuff, or any side hustle jobs that you can get. It was, I gotta figure it out, right? So when you got so much stuff in the streets and a product which goes to business, and there's a need for that product, you're gonna get a lot of people who lose focus of what this was put together for in the first place, right? Every community has turned ill-gotten gains into something good. Some have put people in the White House, and you know, you can do your research. The Kennedy clan came from mobsters. You know what I'm saying? So you have that. That was our way of getting out. So that's what, to me, took the left turn when the money came in, man.
Okay, I
Easy
like
money.
that. I love that, man. That's a good. You know what I mean? That was a good way of explaining that, man. I want to ask you, as far as the gangs in our communities, you know, to me, it shows, you know, the weakness that our men was facing at that time.
Absolutely.
You know,
I could agree.
Me personally, I don't know. I didn't live in them days, but I can imagine there wasn't many women a part of those type of activities. Now these days, you know, you see it in the modern day gang banging. You know, it's, you know, you got women whole gangs now and cliques. You
Exactly.
know, with a lot of things that we are seeing when it comes to gang banging, do you see any fix?
Here's the thing, and I don't, and I appreciate that question. I don't want to, just focus on the idea of gangbanging. It's gangbanging, drug dealing, pimping, hoeing, anything like that, man. The fix has always been opportunity, because a lot of these people just have not had the opportunity, right? In today's society, just like you're doing now, man, you have the opportunity to carve your own path, right? Regardless of what your background is, right? You can carve your own path, go get a side hustle, start a podcast. You can, get certified to do all of these different things, right? Where it was so easy, it's so much easier now, right? So I don't want to just narrow down the gangbang, but you're absolutely right. It's one of those things, man, where, the fix is exposing our children and these youngsters to the opportunities that are available. Right?
That's the big.
Because if you don't know no better, you just don't know no better. And that's where my compassion comes from.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where I was coming from, man, because, you kind of hit it on the head, man, with exactly where I was coming from. I grew up lost, confused, had parents, had a mom and a dad, 1,000 miles away, but, at the same time, it created, a dysfunction for me to find my own dysfunction, and I did that as a kid,
right.
And as I got older, I started to climb out of it.
Right.
But it was a climbing thing.
That part.
It was a climbing thing that people don't understand.
When you're from the outside looking in.
Exactly.
Yes.
So where do we come as Black people to even find the hearts of forgiving the people that have been part of gangs?
Well, first of all, man, we have to have a few things, man. And one, you just got to have compassion for our community. A lot of cases, D, man, the reason I don't think we have compassion is because, just as you said, there is such a dynamic space between those who know and those who don't.
Facts.
Right?
It is.
Me growing up in a household, very good household, you get what I'm saying? And college educated, all this other stuff, right? Parents and all this other stuff. There are a few of my friends who didn't have that, right? But here's the thing. Those friends who didn't have that ended up going that route was because we talked about it prior to us starting this podcast. It's that idea that it's a community that's involved in helping that happen. So if my dad's friend could expose me, when I wanted to go in architecture, and he had a little janitorial service. He had started doing janitorial work for this guy who was an architect. The guy was like, yo, bring him with you. I'll walk him through the office to expose me to those things, right? So to be honest, man, and I hope I answered the question, is the real key is, first of all, we have to forgive ourselves.
Facts.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't know no better, when I'm sitting with a client and we're talking about working out a budget and they're 40, 50, 60 years old and they're saying, Willie, I failed. I give them homework and I say, Willie, I failed. I see you didn't fail. You learned. If this is what you've been doing all your life, you don't know anything better. But you have to forgive yourself in order to be able to learn that, right? Secondly, sometimes, I love Lil Wayne's whole moniker of real G's move in silence like lasagna. That don't just mean thugs. Sometimes when you focused in doing what you need to do, man, you don't have to advertise it. You get what I'm saying? You have to focus on what you need to do and have a reason. Big why. I've always learned, what's the big why you doing it?
Facts.
It could be, your big why could be, bro, I just want a new car. Whatever that is, you just have to focus in on doing that, right? And then secondly, man, be open to be open to constructive criticism. Not that criticism that you get because you got these keyboard gangsters or these keyboard critics that just want some attention, right? Call them ADD people, attention deficit. You just ain't got no attention, so you're gonna choose this person to go in on. Shador Sanders has experienced that, right?
Yes.
Ain't none of y'all doing what he's doing, but at the end of the day, you got something to say. We have to learn, first of all, to forgive ourselves and allow them to do what they do. Because as Cat Williams say, man, I love when he say, a lot of us think we got haters. We don't have haters because we're our biggest hater. Right? He'll say, let haters hate, right? But at the end of the day, how much do you hate yourself? And you can't continue to hate yourself, man. Primarily just forgive yourself, man. And once you can forgive yourself and see yourself in everybody,
you wouldn't. The rest of the world don't matter.
Exactly. You done judging. You know what I mean? You can meet somebody who comes from a place that you never did and connect on a level. And as long as we're open to understanding who they are and accepting who they are for them,
Right.
setting your standards and saying, my brother, this is where I am, and we connect,
Right.
and you keep walking, people are either going to join you or they're going to move around.
Exactly.
We talked about that, right? And if they move, it's meant for them to move. God got a bigger plan for them in some other case, right? But don't judge them for it, because that's all they know. Sometimes we got to be open for that. So forgive yourself and be open to anything that somebody brings you. And as my grandfather used to say, he had this saying to say, take what you want and leave the rest. You don't have to take everything from everybody. You just need to take what you need to actually help you grow. And you leave the rest of that alone, man.
Willie, I'm not gonna lie, man. You kind of killed the interview setting. we are straight into get right. You know what I mean? This get right thing. You know, I'm gonna just give the viewers a little bit of a demonstration. You know what I'm saying? Of the get right foundation and what I'm putting behind it is men and women like us that's actually taking kids by the hand and showing them a way of life. You know, walking with them through their journey. I love the critiqueness of how you're coming to put out your story, and not even your story, from just your example of what you've been seeing and how you analyze things. I love it. So, man, we finna switch it from an interview to a podcast, man. We finna lay it back. We finna lay it back and just, know what I mean?
Man, let's get it.
Have some talk, man. Have some talk, man.
Yes, sir.
Man, that was pretty deep what you said about, you know, a lot of it when it comes to even forgiving yourself when it comes to what you putting out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, I had to learn it the hard way. But I still see people that I'm trying to show and people that I'm willing to help understand that, you know, you gotta want to help you. You gotta want to love you.
Absolutely.
And do for you. I try to show them this the most. And in today's time, it seems as if digitally, the digital world has messed up everything when it comes to the young folks actually getting out here on their own and making their way. It's like they want us to sit right here in front of a computer or laptop and figure it out from there instead of getting out here putting in the footwork.
That's it.
And I had a conversation with, you know, a previous guest, and she actually stated, you know, and agreed the same thing. So what is your take on this new social media world and the AI that they're bringing to kind of destruct us as human beings, as us being humans? Because I feel like we're here to connect. We're here to learn, teach each other, while we're learning from another robot.
Here's the thing, man, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I think that could be the biggest detriment to any community, and as far as our community, it can be the biggest detriment. However, social media can be used for good or bad, right? Everything can be used for good or bad, right? You know, and I'll give you an example. You know, there are some people who, you know, I ain't gonna use certain words because I don't want to get flagged, but we can use a cell phone to talk. They can use a cell phone to take out a community. You get what I'm saying? So you can use something for good or bad, right? You know, whether depending on what that cell phone was attached to, and they hit a button, and you get what I mean? So, but at the end of the day, man, it's about the idea that you take the opportunity that social media, AI, is giving you. This is the first time in history, almost, as you know, that's almost like the revolutionary, or certain times in our American, when we went to the idea of the industrial age, right? We went from farming to actually machine work and creating cars. This is another transition we're going through. And realistically, there are going to be a lot of people who are pushing back on it, man. I'm older, I'm 47. There are a lot of people who aren't as adept to it, right? Because we're so used to realizing we had to do the hard work. You get what I'm saying? If we wanted to start a little business, we had to figure out how to register it. We had to go downtown to get it done. Then you had to market it with flyers and all this other stuff. But with AI, new technology, end of the day, man, it makes everything easy. So I say it's an opportunity for us to take whatever your passion is, whatever you're interested in, and grow it. To be honest, I have no problem with it. I'm a little behind, but I'm learning, man.
Man, I love how you said that. You know, we said it in one way, in one aspect, but it kind of trickled down and backfired on us in another aspect.
Right.
And I'm going to explain to you and give you an example how.
Okay.
I have a father, you know, grew up military man, Navy man, you know, very military. Me and him had a conversation recently, and he was like, dude, you know, back in my days, you know, kids valued, you know, the things that their father and mother did and tried to come up in likenhoods of something like it, somewhere in the same fields.
Right.
He said nowadays, kids are not doing it. They don't.
That's true.
You know, so it's kind of creating a dysfunction of this thing in the African American families.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, man, and that is one way of looking at it, right? Because realistically, and I'll give a small example. You can go to YouTube and look up kid barbers, right? What happens is, my biggest thing is, it goes back to exposure, right? When you're exposed to it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Nice. You know, my man Wall Street Trapper said that, listen, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then once you do it, you can't undo it. There is a disconnect from certain generations, right?
Thanks.
We did value what our parents did because realistically, that was the only way. I have a nephew who's 30 years old, man, and I had to realize that the way the youngsters are doing it, and I call him a youngster, but the way young people are doing it nowadays, man, and is different. And different is not always bad, right? Sure. So there is a disconnect, and we did value our parents because those were the only values we had. Now, don't get it twisted. I think that some young generations can learn from us. Thanks. Because we're not in that world totally. You still have to learn how to talk to people. You still have to learn how to connect with people on a one-on-one basis. You still have to learn how to conduct yourself because those who own everything expect a certain type of decorum for you to get past, because there's gatekeepers everywhere, right?
Most definitely.
But it does not stop you from spreading your own message, right? Thanks. And understanding getting in front of anything before anybody else paints a picture. That's the one thing that you guys have the ability to do that we didn't. Thanks. They can paint a picture of me and your dad and say, here's what black people are. You have the opportunity to do exactly what you're doing. Put up a camera, and anybody can do this. Put up a camera and say, here's who I am, here's what it is, and here's what I believe in, right? And paint the picture of what you want to do for your community so it can never be misconstrued.
Right.
So there is there's great value, I believe, and I'm a little biased because I'm older. I can, Gen X, listen, almost 50. There's a lot you guys can learn to take what you guys have to another level. This is why you see a lot of entrepreneurs who are my age that are doing very, very well, because we get the best of both worlds. The technology part of it, where we understand what we heard our parents say ain't necessarily true. Right. Y'all had to work your butt and go do 2 or 3 jobs to make $100,000. Exactly. I can go drop a few videos and make $100,000. But the base is the community says, how does that, where we come from and my parents came from, how does that affect your community? That's the part we're missing. You and I had the conversation. You can put some good stuff out there to affect our community. And this is why I agreed to come on this podcast, man. We got to talking. I want you to be able to take this and spread it to the community that you're part of. And it don't just mean black people. It can mean whatever, right? Definitely. To be able to uplift them and say, young brother, there's a different way. Because that's all we need is opportunity. So I get what your dad is saying. I agree. But I'll add on to it by saying we have to be able, as that generation, to say, hey, I want to learn what you're doing too. Right. So we can actually transition, because once again, if you're not growing and adapting, then you're gonna get phased out. Exactly.
Man, I love it. Man, you're on point. You're on point about a it's a lot of things I can kind of go back off of and piggyback, but I want to keep it going because, man, we already into it, man. You know, man, with that being said, it's like, you know, a lot of the younger, and for this purpose only, I'm gonna speak for the African Americans. You know what I'm saying?
Please do.
You know,
please do.
You know what I mean? For this purpose only,
Yes.
I'm about to speak for them because it's like, again, here we are, 2020. 2020 come in, pandemic. Changes everything, even for the older folks.
Yes.
If it wasn't apparent in 2000, when 2000 first hit, it's apparent in 2020.
Yes.
You're finna have to make a change.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, it's not like a coming together when it comes to
it's the competition.
Exactly. And how do you, like, I ain't gonna say how, because if you're smart, you got certain discernment, you've been through things, you can make that discernment. But it's a lot of people I see that still go through it with trying to outdo their siblings, trying to outdo their mom, their friends. It's like we growing up with a secret hate. Is it? And personally, I feel like it's because of the digital world.
Okay. I get that. I can see why. I can see why you say that. I will say this though. I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna harp on it. It's because, and I'm a history major, man. I love history and love our history, African American studies, African American history, right? We've always been pitted against each other from day one. So if anybody don't know about it, and this is propaganda, it's not said to be true, but if you've ever, you don't do it, I'll tell y'all, go look up, when you get off of this, go look up the Willie Lynch letter. And the Willie Lynch letter was the first piece of propaganda, whether it's true or false, that pit us against each other, right? But there is so much beauty in our differences, right? It's so much beauty in my experiences and blending them with your experiences and understanding how much more of an impact we can make.
Right.
We have been trained in our community for first of all, brothers to try to outdo each other because we've been taught it ain't enough for everybody. And then again in our community, you'll see this, and that's kind of deviating, but I'm gonna bring it back. Black men against black women.
That's not deviating.
That's where we're headed.
That's where we're headed.
And that's the killing of our community. Because I'm telling you, man, one of my favorite people is John Hope Bryant. And he talks about opportunities come from being able to sometimes pay for those opportunities. Those things come from the wealth of your family. I mean, the wealth. Wealth comes from a family structure, technically, right? So if me and you get together, coming from two separate ends, right?
Right.
And we decide we want to connect, and I say, you do this well, I do this well. Bro, let's see about getting together and creating something as long as we're on the same page, right? So, yeah, we have some struggles, man, but I think it's because of the perpetuation of that negative idea that we got to compete. That negative idea that I'm going to compete with my woman because she got a better job. Or that negative idea that you may look down on me because I may have a college education and you don't. It's always been perpetuated in every movie.
It's not going nowhere, though.
And you know, it's not going nowhere. But here's the thing. I'm not going to say it's not going anywhere. The good thing about the algorithm is if you focus on the right stuff, it'll phase itself out, right?
It'll feed you more.
Believe me, there are times I've had stuff that I followed and you got all of this different type of cursing and fighting and all this other stuff. But as my mind changed, as I opened myself up just to one idea, in 2004 when I got into financial services through insurance, life insurance, I was meeting everyday millionaires. And once again, like Trap said, man, if you see it, you can't unsee it. When you see these average brothers walking every day who are multimillionaires, average people who are multimillionaires, they had the opportunity, right? My whole goal when I got involved was saying, oh, this is how they doing it. I'm telling you, man, when I found out how they were making their wealth, another avenue, I was ready to come back and tell my people, which is why I got into doing this thing about I need to teach financial literacy even before it was a popular thing, right? But it's about exposing, right?
Facts.
So at the end of the day, me and you may come from two different places, and I don't think honestly we're too far apart from each other.
Most definitely.
Sometimes a moment
Just
that took me away from this may have took you to this place.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make me any better than you, right?
Most
At the end of the day. But one of the things I just learned is when I found out the secret, you have to have a heart to say you want to go teach as many of our people as possible. And
Right.
everybody's not going vibe with you saying it.
Most definitely.
I could give you a plan right now to say, brother, this is how you're going to make $1 million. And I'll give you a book and say, go read John Hope Franklin. He'll tell you how to make $1 million, how to become a millionaire like this. And I may have a community. Me and you connect. You got that, right? You go tell a community that I may not be welcome in, that I may be looked at as a lame. I may be looked at as a square-ass dude. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But you take it. Once again, everybody go check out Wall Street Trapper, because he's that guy that was able to bridge the gap and say, I got a record, I've been in jail, I've been in all this other stuff, I learned this, and now I'm teaching everyday average folks to do it. So at the end of the day, man, our community struggles. We just have to be very open to being able to learn more, man. And as long as you're doing that, you good.
That's the biggest thing, man. You know, how do we get the average, what do you call it, products of their environment out of their environment mindset?
Once again, I'm telling you, I'm going to harp on it, bro. It's exposure. And if you can relate, right? The credibility that I may have, because I know a little bit of your story, but the credibility that you'll have talking to a young brother that I may have run into when I'm doing a speech or at an event, that's talking, man, I ain't trying to hear that, because here's what I went through. I was in da-da-da-da-da, and I can't do this. That credibility is saying, man, I got somebody you need to talk to.
Right.
And for you not to be able to say, man, well, I ain't doing that. He's my competition. Instead of saying he's my brother in love.
Most
I feel his pain. I know that pain point and saying, brother, I'm telling you, here's how we're going to get it. And we do it all legit. We do it all legal. We make it all above board. And have somebody who is around you to create that community. It's a very slow process only because there's not a lot of us who think like you do, my guy, and like me, who says everything I'm doing today is not just for me.
Most
And those are God's people. The disciples of Jesus, man, I ain't gonna get too deep on it. They all had problems and issues. You get what I'm saying? The 12 great men in the Bible, all of them had some type of issue. They weren't perfect, but they were there together to work together to actually spread the word. And I'll get off that, but I'll say this. Between you and I, man, having conversations like we have, whether it's on the camera, off the camera, right?
Right.
Whether we sitting down here having lunch, at a cafe, and they looking at two people like, he look lame and dude looks like he cool. So what is that about, right?
Exactly.
And people coming to ask, no offense, but how y'all know each other?
Yeah.
And understanding now, I don't feel so weird, or I don't feel like I'm not cool because I'm hanging out with a dude that got a button-up shirt and he talks a certain way. And me saying the same thing, but this is my brother.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Regardless of how we came up, I'm going to tell you how we can all come together. And my biggest thing, man, is understand there's enough out here for all of us. That's how they do it. There's enough out here for all of us, man.
Man, I like what you said, man. Because it's, it's a rapid for word, man. Kenny, man. I don't want to get off into it. Youngster doing his thing. Salute, much respect. But he was doing a interview on Real Tune, and he actually had to. He didn't have to, but he spoke on actually shooting a gay dude. Excuse my French and my terminology for gay, but he was shooting someone, that decided the opposite sex,
Right.
or the same sex, and to me, I seen that as being powerful in that young man. Just with him being able to be like, yeah, I got gay cousins, I got gay people in my family, and I still love them. That's huge.
Yes.
That's huge.
Right.
There's not many wannabe gangsters and men that kind of grow up embracing their love over a situation or problem.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? So that was huge. So with that being said, man, I'm finna ask you this, man, because me and my brother, you know, actually had this conversation too, and I want to ask you this. Do you feel like, man, I'm finna say this.
I know it's a little,
LGBTQ community, do not blame me for this. You know, but I want to ask you, man, do black men harm us overall as African Americans, or do they help the cause?
You know, man, that is a compound answer, man.
It very much well is.
But I overall, my personal belief, man, is that we are. Here's what I've learned, man, in my faith. It don't take a lot to make a big impact, right?
Yes.
So regardless of how much people think we are not helpful to the community, gay, straight, don't matter, right? I don't think it's about that. I think, in my opinion, dude, and this is me being a straight man, right?
Facts.
I believe that that's the diversion, right?
Yes.
That's to keep us off the idea of saying certain things or focusing on what the real problem is. So I'm in finance, right? And I'm going to say this, in my personal experience, the LGBTQ plus community, that the few people that I've worked with in that community, right, I've noticed reminded me of, and don't get me wrong, of the generation we were talking about earlier, of the civil rights movement, because they depended on their own to make it. Give an example. Let me back up. When I grew up, the first black mayor in Little Rock, the first black female mayor in Little Rock, Arkansas, her name is Lottie Shackelford. She went to school with my mom and dad. She used to come by the house and hang out when they was playing dominoes in the backyard or whatever the case may be.
Facts.
My first barber was a black barber who owned his own barbershop. My first pharmacist was a black pharmacist. When my daddy needed to go get a suit, he went to a black tailor. When we needed to go to a black grocery store, we went to a black farmer's market and did all of these things, right?
Thanks.
They have learned how to be very inclusive within their community and build each other, right? From a financial standpoint.
Thanks.
Now, here's the thing. Because of my
other.
Yes. And here's the thing. It's different because that's what that community does. That's what non-African Americans do, whether you Asian and you do little Chinatown, you do, black businesses, African businesses, they come together. So for me, personally, I don't think that's the way of looking at it. Does it harm or does it hurt? Right? I think if we assign, who are we to assign what's right and wrong, right? I know my faith, but I'm not going to judge. Hey, if that's your lifestyle, then absolutely do you, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's not about that to me. My thing is, are you a contributor to your community? And if you are a contributor to your community, a contributor to your family doing better, a contributor to this world doing better, I don't care. Let me just add this. Everybody's heard of Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech.
Can I kind of say this before you
Go
put that
ahead.
in there? Because, you know what I mean? I feel exactly everything you're on. But it's kind of one thing that I kind of have a disdain about when it comes to the LGBTQ community. They do look out for each other. They do look out for, themselves, for lack of better words. But it's the thing of the people. Don't nobody matter but them. I look at them as more of a demonic society than anything. You know, not actually for people. You know what I'm saying?
And I kind of, I've heard that before.
Okay.
Here's what I don't do, and this is just me. I'm not one who, I really do stick to the path of, for me, I can't, I have, even being the man that I am, I haven't always done right, right? And at the end of the day, I don't want to paint them with a broad brush, if that makes any sense, right?
Okay.
So don't get me wrong, right? You can have a community within, a sub-community within a community that ain't the best part of that community, right? And I'm not saying that about the LGBTQ plus community. I'm just saying in general, right? We just talked about gangbangers versus the guys that you push to go to college.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, I always look at it, I really do stick to the fact that it is not my job to even judge. And sometimes I can't speak on that simply because that's just not me.
Right.
As a human, I'm going to respect you as who you are.
Most definitely.
Now, don't get it twisted. You disrespect me, that's a whole different issue. You get what I mean? And I'm just going to keep it all the way real.
Right.
And that, I don't care who you are.
Right.
White, black, brown, straight, not straight, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, what I look at is, because I'm such a big picture guy, instead of looking at what they're taking from us or what they are, remember my saying, take what you want, leave the rest?
Exactly.
You don't necessarily have to agree with their lifestyle, right?
Right.
There are a lot of Trump supporters that don't necessarily agree with Trump, but they agree with his tax strategy, right? Because they're billionaires and millionaires, right? There are people who don't agree with Trump who are racist. They don't agree with his tax strategy, don't know his tax strategy, but they agree because they're racist, right? And they all get on board. My thing with that, man, is at the end of the day, man, if they are at a place in their life where what they do is not my opinion, what you do is not my concern.
Right.
I just want us to be, as black people, black Americans, to be contributors of your society. I understand this, and I may not understand your lifestyle, but that's not for me to judge, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, we, as even us, I've gotten the way I made it through high school during that gangbanging period was because there was some people watching after me who were in that lifestyle of being a gangbanger, but didn't expect me to be a part of it as a protector. So although I don't agree with what you're doing, we can all benefit from each other in some shape, form, or fashion, right?
Thanks.
But I do get what you're saying, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people believe that, right? But that goes with your faith walk, right? That goes with your faith walk, and I'm not gonna knock it because, brother, I get it. I just personally look at it as, I may not like that aspect of it,
Thanks.
or a certain aspect, but what is it that we can learn from that community?
I totally agree.
In order for us to grow.
And I'm on the same level as that, man. The thing is, with me, I kind of feel like, Skip feel. I don't feel like nothing. I know there's gonna have to be a certain change within that community, because for the black man and the black woman that's a part of the community, when things go, if a civil war ever break out,
I get you. Where you going with that?
Then you're gonna run back to, the black straight people over here, or you're gonna stay with them over there. It's kind of like, don't nobody kind of speak of the things of the future.
I get you.
Man, how can I word this better?
Well, let me say this real quick, because I think I kind of know where you're going. I see, and unfortunately, I've been raised in my household to understand that I see microaggressions and racism in everything, in some of everything.
Micro who?
Aggressions. So it's little bitty stuff that they do that you don't know, that they don't think is racism, but you take it as that, right?
Facts.
So I've been born to look at that, and I say all of that to say this. They're just 9/11 happened. We all Americans now, right?
Thanks.
It don't take away from
Whether you
Rodney King getting beat in the late 80s, 90s or whatever, or all these people who getting killed in New York. We getting searched and frisked in New York. You get pulled over for being black, but let somebody come against you. Are we now all Americans, right?
Right.
So that's how I kind of look at it, man, is if something breaks out, at the end of the day, I would say this. I would hope, as being a black man and being a minority, that we would be able to come together. Realistically, in this political time we're in now,
Right.
a lot of things are being exposed, right?
Yes.
And a lot of stuff that we've gone through forever, some of these other communities are now starting to feel.
Exactly.
Right? Asian community, the
Caucasian
community, the Hispanic community.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I don't ever want to think that if something like that happened, hypothetically, I think we have had a lot of practice in coming together no matter what your preference is,
Yes.
period. And I say that to say this. During the time of the 1950s and 60s, during our greatest civil rights struggle, one of the greatest speeches ever made wouldn't even happen if it wasn't for Bayard Rustin. If you don't know who that is, everybody look him up. Bayard Rustin is he was a professor in some cases. And so what happened was he ended up organizing. He's the one that came up with the speech on the March on Washington. He had to convince Dr. King of doing this speech, right? He had allies. When I say allies, white people who were helping him put it together, Europeans that were helping him put together, because he was considered a communist, but he was also considered a gay male communist. And this is in the 60s, 50s and 60s, where you couldn't even, that wasn't even, you would get killed just for thinking about that.
Well, no, that was 1800.
Right. But you would get killed for even thinking like that. But he was
in the 19th century?
Yes, it literally in the 50s.
No.
Yeah, brother, for real, especially in the South.
Okay, in the South.
Especially in the South.
In the South. Okay.
In the 50s,
Yes.
40s, 50s, and 60s, absolutely, especially in the South.
Okay.
Right? We got hung for just being black.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So you black and you're gay, it's different. So Bayard Rustin, is one who actually, if it wasn't for him, Dr. King wouldn't have made the most influential speech, the most repeated speech, the most learned speech of anybody in the world, period, because of this one man. So I say all of that to say this. When, excuse my language, the sugar turns to shit, it was beyond my sexuality. It was beyond all of this stuff. It was, what's the message we need to get out and how do we need to come together at the end of the day? I know nowadays it seems a lot petty, and it seems a lot of it is really petty. Social media, though, takes the negative, and you've experienced as a negative of things, and will blow it up like this because everybody wants clicks and likes. But clicks and likes don't matter when the war hits.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, if this man is over here and he prefer the man, but he's my foxhole buddy, and it's between him and I, if we're going to get out this thing alive or whatever, and I'm extreme, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we're going to move forward in this business, if we're going to move forward in our economic war, we're going to move forward in our social war, I don't care. If you have the skill and the talent to help get us where we need to get to, let's focus on that.
So, man, let me hop off that subject real quick, man, and kind of just reverse that a little bit.
Okay.
Do you think in the instance of war, a civil war,
Okay.
in the midst of a civil war and possibly a war, that white and black people can come together in this country?
I think most comfortable people, black or white, are going to run to where they're comfortable.
Facts. I do.
So, in my opinion, I try to be a little bit more optimistic, dude, man. I try to be like, yo, bro, it's one of those things where I try to look at it very optimistically, and I do believe that we can come together if we need to, right? Because we all serve a purpose in this bigger thing. The Civil War didn't happen if it wasn't for some white allies. The Underground Railroad didn't happen if it wasn't for white abolitionists, right? So I do believe that can happen. Are we going to do a great job of vetting those people in this day and age? That's what I worry about. Because I think and I'm going to use this metaphorically, because I think sometimes we can invite some people to the picnic just because they can actually dance like us. Don't mean they like us. They just dance like us, and we say, oh, you invited to the picnic, right? You a cool Caucasian, and you invited to the picnic, versus us really vetting people and saying, are you really an ally, right? Dr. Umar talks about that. Are you really an ally? Or are you just pretending because we just the cool thing to be? Right. So that's my opinion about how that would work out. But I do believe we can come together if necessary.
If necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I don't need you forever, to be honest. I just need us to get through this point, and then we go back. They did it in the 90s. They did it in the 90s in LA with gangs. Gangs came together to make sure that they calm the streets down, and then they still respect the fact I'm gonna be over here, you're gonna be over here. But if need comes, when they come for us, we all gonna get together. I believe that is possible.
I like that, Willie. I like that, man.